Welcome to SVG-TV's news for Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. I'm Triska Campbell with the details. The Oscar Allen Emancipation Memorial Lecture was hosted here last evening by the University of the West Indies Global Campus in collaboration with the Friends of Oscar Allen and the Diamonets organization. The lecture, Emancipation Still Coming, was presented by Dr. Michael Gary Denny, who is one of three Vincentians writing a multi-volume on the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Dr. Denny is also a professor of history at the St. Mary's College in Maryland, the USA. Delivering remarks at the opening ceremony, Chief Cultural Officer Maxine Brown told the gathering that it is imperative as a people we look back and assess from whence we came to better appreciate and understand our current situation.
As we brag about being free, our freedom, being emancipated, being liberated, being unchained, having rights and privileges, being enfranchised, the question on the table is, how can we emancipate ourselves from mental slavery? The answer may be hard to find, but it is important for us to break that chain, break that bond, break the enemy within us, if we ought to become truly free. And as I wordplay with freedom, I will try as best to provide some possible solutions to free reign, F-R-E-E-D-O-M, freedom. Happiness is freedom. Freedom demands courage. Your freedom is one of your most prized possessions. So don't take it for granted. When one realizes that she or he might have lost his or her way, then they need to fight back for it. Freedom is never worth giving up. Therefore, we need to force ourselves to we need to force ourselves, if we have to, in that, do all we can within our power, to be that change we want to see in this world, in this lifetime. We shall feel empowered, capable, and proud of ourselves as a people. So when we're deciding on the future direction for our country, let's all be adults and recognize everyone else's right to be an adult.
Brown also stressed the importance of fighting against racism, bias, and discrimination in all forms.
The bigger enemy is our state of mind. When we change the way we look at things, the way we look at things change. Freedom is everything. Freedom won't mean much if our own mind isn't free. If we cannot control our mind, then we can't expect ourselves to fully enjoy a life based on our own terms. So we don't do the R, I play with words. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Remind ourselves to recognize everyone else's rights. Not all the rights for you and none for the others. Rights and freedom should be for all groups of people. For to be free is not merely to cast off one strain, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. I ought to remember Nelson Mandela for that stern admonition, that wise counsel. E, enable ourselves to do more, act upon things more, invest more, volunteer more. We shall truly believe that everything that we do and everything that we meet is put on a path for a purpose. There are accidents. In fact, there are no accidents. We are all teachers if we are willing to pay attention to the lessons we learn. Trust our positive instincts and not be afraid to take risks, or wait for some miracle to come knocking at our door, or someone to give us permission, or depend on someone else's approval, or simply wait for someone else to do it. We ought to do our part now to make a difference in this world. That's freedom too. E is for everything, through our every being, in that we shall do everything we can to enable change when it's due season. Do not be afraid to seek change, so that the lives of our people is always being improved, and we should speak up for what we care about. Stand up against discrimination in all forms. In fact, in that, do the right thing. Do the right thing, not when it feels right, but do the right thing with God's grace all of the time. In this road to freedom, we cannot call right wrong and wrong right. Wrong is wrong, and equal so right is right. Do the right thing at all times. That's freedom too.
Noting that one of the greatest crimes committed against humanity is slavery, the Chief Cultural Officer said it is the onus is on us as a people to seek redress for the wrongs committed against us.
What is the message we are sending? What is the legacy we want to leave behind for our children and our children's children? The questions are numerous. M is also for Maxine. Make every effort to be free. Speak up for what you care about so that others who may be in bondage could see the light and be free, free indeed as well, through taking the necessary actions. In being free, be ethical. What's good for goose is also good for gander. Take actions on issues you care about, whether it's family, friends, or foe. That is freedom too. We have a choice to reclaim our freedom and take control of our lives. After almost 200 years, the tonight's lecture is dubbed Emancipation Still Coming. Interesting. I trust that our stalwart and seasoned historian, Dr. Denny, will either provide or provoke our thoughts a bit more as he simultaneously guides us into the right direction to be truly emancipated. As I wrap up my remarks, I will leave this quote here. Until justice is blind to color, until education is unaware of race, until opportunity is unconcerned with the color of man's skin, emancipation will be a proclamation, but not a fact. Lyndon B. Johnson could not have said it any better. In fact, unless we take the time to discern, to understand, to make that change, emancipation will just be a manifesto, an announcement, a statement of belief. Let's become a force to be reckoned with and make that true change in being truly emancipated. Emancipation for me, emancipation for you, emancipation for all of we. When will we all be free? I reiterate, into this lecture, in this evening's presentation, I hope you can get some more facts on how to be truly free and be free indeed. Let's labor for freedom. For everything that is really true and great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom. It is our duty as a people to fight for freedom. I repeat, it is our duty as a people to fight for freedom. And the freedom we can most control is the freedom within ourselves.
Bringing attention to what he said is a specific moment in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which has gone unnoticed for the vast majority of Vincentians between 1797 and 1838, when SVG was still a slave society. Professor Denny, in his presentation of the lecture, put forward the question, what does it mean to be a Garifuna in an enslaved society? Noting that while in theory they were supposed to be free, they were still living in a slave society.
Precisely does freedom mean? Because the notion that freedom is coming, well, if you're a Garifuna between 1797 and 1834, you had freedom. Before 1797, within that space, 1797 to 1834, you lost that freedom. But not in the context of the commodification of the human body. When we, the reason why I began with the idea that if you are the planter class, 20 million pounds, that's the price. So the body is commodified, it's a commodity to be bought and sold, it is monetized, we can receive money for it. But I also contrasted that in the instance of the Americans scenario where there's no money, they're going to fight to the death. And so if you're the Garifuna living in this space between 1797 and 1834, there is no price placed upon your body. In fact, maybe about 20 years ago, it struck me like a hammer that we had in St. Vincent people, the Garifuna, who were never slaves. And that the normal representation of Vincentian history, that 1834 mark such a momentous occasion, which it truly does for a great number of us. But for Garifuna, what did it mean to be living between 1797 and 1834? What does freedom mean?
Professor Dennis said when he looks back at the history of enslavement and give recognition to the evil within the system, we as a people have to give reverence for the enslaved who gave their lives so that we can be here today.
I want to make that point, if only to insist that when we contrast where we are today, in terms of using slavery as a metaphor to make sense of our experience today, remember those who died, whose bodies were commodified, whose bodies were monetized, and who fought every single day to end that kind of and to reclaim the autonomy of their bodies. So I want to make that very, very clear. By the same token, I want all of us here today to remember that within the space we call St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not all of us were enslaved. But slavery is not the only means through which people suffer. And I am resistant to the idea that there's some kind of hierarchy of horrors. You know, slavery is absolutely awful, but so too is genocide. And that is the experience of the Garifuna. And that legacy of genocide, that is the legacy that has been ignored for a couple hundred years in St. Vincent. And when we speak about emancipation, we need to remember that there were once a people in St. Vincent who were free. And then the British and others arrived. And their suffering was immense. So I do not place one horror against another. We simply recognize them as twin evils in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In fact, it is also true that the experience of the Garifuna and the experience of the enslaved Vincentians, that's a history that is absolutely interlocked one into the other.
Professor Denny further noted that while the scholarly literature on the post-1797 world is lacking, there is a sufficient colonial records which exists to break the silence and tell the story of the legacy of the genocide against the Garifunas, which he and his colleagues are seeking to do with a multi-volume on the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Our band of historians, particularly Drs. Fraser's and Scott, have been just tremendous resources in getting access to some of these documents. And I have lapped them up, read them, tried to make sense of them. But, I do have to honor the tremendous research skills of Dr. Fraser and Dr. Scott in discovering some of this material, which I'm sharing with you. We are literally sharing with you for the first time something which basically you can find nowhere else, because these are records which were discovered and which is being utilized in our writing of the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We could not be doing this work without the support of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That has to be acknowledged. We are engaged in this study because St. Vincent and the Grenadines have in fact recognized the value to the work that we are doing. And I give tremendous credit to the government for giving us this kind of support. And so it is not simply that scholars have hidden the history of the Garifuna. Garifuna people themselves in St. Vincent hid that history. And we have to ask ourselves, why? The answer is clear-cut. That history was hidden because to reveal that history would have subjected them to discrimination.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the National Reparations Commission, Adrian Udo, says as SVG and other countries seek reparatory justice, the first step would be to get an apology from nations which committed these wrongs against humanity. However, he noted that getting these apologies will be a difficult task. Udo called into SVG-TV's Viewpoint program last Sunday during the discussion on the topic. The calls for reparations to compensate blacks for the injustices suffered as a result of the Atlantic slave trade is gaining momentum around the world. But is this call too late? Should we forget it and move on, or should it be pursued? Do we and SVG have a case to be made?
A lot of nations seem to dismiss the idea that they should apologize. As a matter of fact, some of them believe that we should be grateful for the existence of slavery and transatlantic slave trade. So once we get these apologies from those nations, we can then take it a step further. Now, when you enter reparations, a lot of persons tend to think about receiving a fund, but reparations can take many forms. And one of the forms of reparations that we're seeking would be in the shape of funding for persons to further their education and for persons to also create and establish different institutes that would seek to repair some of the cultural damage that St. Vincent and Grenadines would have suffered as a consequence of this transatlantic trade.
Udo noted that the National Reparations Committee has transitioned into a commission and that it is their intention to do school visits to educate young people about their history.
Understanding of the history, they would then be able to understand the importance of reparation and the importance of this movement. Because what we find is that a lot of young people are not aware of the importance of reparation and the importance of the history. So one of our plans is to integrate with the Heritage Club that most schools have already established, and to have a subcommittee there that specifically deals with preparatory justice. So that's first on our agenda. Moving on from there, of course, we will integrate the Curriculum 10-point plan, and we will be using that plan as a guide to our further once the committee is put forth. The commission is put forth, sorry.
SVG is expected to host 33 heads of states and their delegation to mark the transfer of the pro tempore presidency of the Community of Latin America and the Caribbean States, CELAC, to Honduras in next year, February. This is according to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who was addressing the prize-giving ceremony on Monday for the winners of the various competitions held for Vintimas 2023, hosted by the Carnival Development Corporation, the CDC.
Event like that, representing 650 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean. I'm pushing sandals to be open for that time. You know the amount of cultural activities which are going to take place and the amount of money cultural artists and others are going to make during that particular period of time, and how that is going to put St. Vincent way up on top of the map. And then in the month of March is National Heroes Month. With March 14th, and we have to make that bigger than ever before. I know Maurice said that anytime you do something big, people want something bigger. Well, it's not always bigger is better, because Beckett has advised something about a small pin.
Prime Minister Gansav said SVG should also prepare itself for another major events next year, including the possible hosting of one of the Super 8 matches of the T20 World Cup.
March. And a lot of people from the United States and from Central America come over. In April, Rotary is holding their regional convocation here. Brian Glasgow has just been elected the regional Rotarian president. They're going to bring between 500 and 700 people here at the time, around April the 20th. May. April, May is usually, and we have to get the people involved in gospel more than before. But do it better than we have done it, and bring people from all about, but even for ourselves, because morning by morning new mercies we see. All that we need thy hand has provided, great is thy faithfulness. So we have to put that in the mix. We have applied for the month of June for a Super 8, one of the Super 8 features, sections of World Cup T20 cricket. And we are preparing, and we are confident that St. Vincent and the Grenadines may win one of those Super 8s. And we have a costing $12 million US would be required for us to upgrade Arnesville. And I am setting out to upgrade Arnesville between now and June, and spend that money on it to have the facility to see if we can get our Super 8, one of the Super 8 games. Again, involving sports, linking with culture. And then July is Carnival. And August is Emancipation Month. And what we did with the August the 1st competition, the August the 1st concert, we will do again.
The Prime Minister said for Emancipation Month in August, there will be a series of activities, including a repeat of the Emancipation concert held this year on August 1st at the Victoria Park, and that he would like the celebration of activities for the month to go up to September 7th for African Union CARICOM Day, which will be designated this year. In reference to October, the month of independence, Prime Minister Gansav said this should be celebrated with a series of cultural events.
Indicated. I would like to see us, and I give Carlos the challenge as the minister, but he has to work with everybody else. The weekend before independence, well, the whole month is a month where we should be dealing with all cultural matters, including our cuisine. Renee had a dimension of that. That has fallen off somewhat. We have to pick it back up again and lift it higher. And the weekend before independence, which will be the date closest to the 21st of October. The 21st of October is the day in 1935 when the working people and the peasantry of this country rose up against colonialism, and the process of the modern social democratic movement began. That social democratic movement still has unfinished tasks, which we currently trying to complete. and we must celebrate that day. And I want us to see it this year, celebrate it Saturday the 21st of October and Sunday the 21st, all throughout the country. In all the communities, we must be playing sports and we must be having cultural events. And ending up on one day with a big cultural event and another day with a big sporting, the Saturday with a big cultural event and the Sunday with a big sporting event. Because we have to bind us tighter together, and we have to use sports, and we have to use culture. We have been using it, we have to do it much more than ever before. And then December is 9 Morning and Christmas. And in between, there are various types of festivals that we have and occasions. Indian Arrival Day, other particular days where we celebrate things. We have to be engrossed in life, living, and production.
A signing ceremony for the Improving Vegetable Cultivation Management and Post-Harvest Handling and Improving Livestock Rearing Project will be held this Friday, August 25th at the Newgrounds Primary School. This is according to the area representative and Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Sabota Caesar, who on NBC Radio's face-to-face program today said the project is a collaboration between the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Taiwan. Minister Caesar said as they continue to diversify the agriculture industry, the project will involve the upgrade of palletization plants at Langley Park and Lacwa, which were assets left over from the banana industry. And the upgrade of these facilities will accommodate crops to supply the local, regional, and international markets.
It's really interesting, having lived through the banana epoch, and to see the transitioning where we are now going to establish food terminal markets whereby other commodities will be moved through these facilities. And we were able to do a dry run, if you may call it, during the COVID-19 pandemic when we utilized these facilities for the Love Box initiative. And during the period of the volcanic eruptions as well, we were able to use these facilities to package goods. The difference now, though, is that we are going to utilize the assistance of the private sector. So we're going to have a public-private partnership, because it's not sustainable for the government to run these facilities, especially when you have persons in the private sector coming forward wanting to establish these platforms. However, very importantly, at these facilities would be the need for cold storage. And in our discussions with the government and people of Taiwan, what we noted to them is that the assistance that we'll need, one, is that we need solar panels on these facilities, and we would need not only the infrastructural work to refurbish the facilities, but to ensure that we have cold storage. What this means is that we can set up and establish in St. Vincent and the Grenadines a cold chain in our supply chain, so that you don't have to have fire stick sales when you reap your produce. For the most part, when a farmer, when he reaps his tomatoes on a Thursday, he has to get them off Friday or Saturday. And then you have so many persons planting at the same time, because we're planting basically within the same agri-ecological zones. We are planting in a situation where we are all affected by the same climatic and weather conditions on the island. It's not. And the answer, therefore, is that once we have a cold chain that is established, we will be able to harvest the produce a bit earlier and have them sometime up to the period of a month, 2 months, so that we can spread how we are putting the commodities on the markets. What this will do is that it will definitely stabilize the prices, and it will act as an encouragement for farmers to continue to produce and to produce more.
He's also noted that because of the increase in exports and the growing demand for locally produced food, they are seeing an increase in the cost for ground provisions locally.
Some persons are seeing it as a problem. Some persons are seeing it as a good problem to have, because once you address it, it will mean that we will be able to increase production and productivity, and that our farmers will be able to earn more. So if you're a farmer and you're listening to this program, if you're a landowner and you're listening to this program this morning, this is definitely an encouragement to you to invest more, expand your production. I spoke to that farmer that I met this week, the one who I visited his farm when he was harvesting.
Bacchus.
Yes, and he's exporting to the United Kingdom. He said to me, he has about 3 or so acres now. And when we started, it was little under an acre, went up to 3 acres. And he's looking to expand to close to 12 acres of dasheen. I don't know when last you drove through the valley over into Greg's.
Oh, it's been a while.
It's been a while. You need to go and see it. It's a very beautiful site.
I can understand the main when I'm going that way.
Very beautiful site. You have on an early morning scores of persons going out to plant. You have now the sale of slips.
Okay.
Because we have a scarcity of dasheen slips in the country because of the expansion program. And I want to congratulate the extension staff in the ministry. I know that there's always the opportunity to do better and to do more, but it was because of a carefully crafted program by Donowa Jackson in the ministry. And you saw it on API, you heard it on the news, it was all over Facebook, Farmer's Diary, when he said that we have to adopt a commodity approach to dasheen production. And of course, this was market-led, because we were getting the information and the intelligence from the international markets that dasheen was definitely needed. Now, if it's the month of September and dasheen is still $200 per sack, $2 per pound, we are going to monitor it to see what is going to happen up until the end of the year, because we will have to ramp up production for 2024. Of course, we are already in the tissue culture lab, but we can't bring out the slips fast enough. We have some 25,000 slips or so organized between now and the rest of the year, but that's a very small number when you compare it with the number of acres that we are looking at.
The Agriculture Minister said incorporating the use of technology in the industry has piqued the interest of the youth, while noting a demand for more food production locally.
And I remember at one point in time, persons were saying that young people don't have an interest in agriculture, but that is not true. Young people, they have a significant interest in agriculture, but there are certain types of farming that they're more interested in. For example, the utilization of greenhouse and shade house technology. If you go to the Orange Hill station, you will see a large number of young persons they're organizing the seedlings, they're dealing with the vegetable production. And this is all a part of the change in face of agriculture in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I should be visiting with a team to St. Lucia to visit Sandals to look at how the supply chain, the local chain in St. Lucia is established to organize the commodities for the supplying of the hotel. It's very important for farmers who are listening to have an appreciation that it's one thing to hear the political will being declared that we want to increase the local production of vegetables. But until you get off of the dry land and you step in and participate, we will not be able to meet the targets that we are setting. And how are we going to, over the next few months, seek to encourage you so that we can meet the targets for 2024? And, you know, sometimes when I speak like this, and I speak about something that's coming, and something that is coming that is very big, very rare you find a lot of persons jumping on board without seeing it for themselves first. And I am pleading this morning If you don't believe, you could drive down and see the hotel being completed. If you're on the windward side, you could see the hotels being completed, or you could see those that are just completed. We are definitely increasing our room stock here in St.
Contestant number 6 in the Miss SVG Pageant 2023 National Award, sponsored by Flo, will be focusing on the golden economy for her Geku Community Service project. Labour's project, which will run from September 3rd to September 9th, will focus on renewable energy sources and efficient energy-saving methods to reduce energy costs.
Yes, it has been very challenging for members of my community as it relates to their energy bills and the constant fluctuation of the fuel surcharge. I have heard the cries and the many complaints of my neighbors, single mothers, friends, and family members. I have seen where other countries are moving ahead and away from fossil fuels to clean and renewable energy sources. Therefore, when the opportunity arose for me to use my platform as a contestant in the Miss SVG 2023 pageant to become the voice of businesses, entrepreneurs, farmers, suppliers, and consumers, the voice of my community, I had to make every effort to bring all my energies and talents to the fore to advocate on these issues.
Naya Laborde, who hails from Sign Hill, is expected to commence her community service project on Sunday, September 3rd, with a meet and greet neighborhood stroll where she would distribute flyers and t-shirts to residents.
Then, on Monday, 4th of September 2023, it is my intention to host a Renew Gen rally where I would invite guest speakers and musical artists to speak and perform for members of the community. The hope is that residents become more aware of more environmentally friendly energy options. As my project continues, I will erect a billboard depicting energy-saving tips on Tuesday, 5th of September 2023. For me, this will be a constant reminder of the important practices that we must adopt, which then paves the way for Wednesday and Thursday school visits to numerous schools within my community to educate and inform students and teachers about renewable energy and energy-saving tips. As the week winds down, I guarantee that I will keep you informed through my social media handles and press releases. Finally, the main event will be the Renew Gen Expo and Fun Day, where corporate entities will be encouraged to set up stalls, as this will be a way to showcase and educate how renewable energy is the future.
The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, through funding from the United States Agency for International Development Policy and Regulatory Reform for Resilience Activity, will conduct a stakeholders consultation tomorrow, Thursday, August 24th, to update the National Comprehensive Disaster Management CDM strategy and implementation for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The strategy and implementation plan will be used to support the achievement of goals and objectives of the recently updated National Comprehensive Disaster Management Policy 2023. NEMO said the main objective of the consultation is to examine the result statements identified in the Comprehensive Disaster Management Strategy and Implementation Plan 2020, alongside those proposed in the recently updated Comprehensive Disaster Management Policy 2023 and a Comprehensive Disaster Management Country Work Program, to ensure that there is a harmonization of the desired intended results and actions. Tomorrow's stakeholders consultation to update the National Comprehensive Disaster Management Strategy and Implementation on Plan for St. Vincent and the Grenadines will take place at the Seventh-day Adventist Mission Conference Room. The opening ceremony is expected to begin at 8:30 a.m.